Another big point I wanted to touch upon was we've got there's so much talk right now in the world about consent, generally regarding sexual consent. It's especially being talked about on the news right now with all these celebrity things going on. And it's been talked about on college campuses, like a lot more for the past several years. And there have been so many issues about lack of consent and all kinds of things about raising awareness that if someone's passed out or drunk, they're not able to give consent. But it's almost always talked about in terms of sexual consent. But I was thinking, at the cuddle party we practice consent for the littlest thing, like, can I touch your elbow? Could I rest my head on your shoulder? Like, no one would probably necessarily say assault if someone did that without permission, but the whole point of this is consent for everything. And someone mentioned a story of someone who, after the cuddle party, that's the thing, we're encouraged to take these skills out into the world, and so this person asked a girl if he could hold her hand, and couldn't believe his own different feelings, because now he knew she said yes, she actually wants to be holding my hand, instead of when he would just hold their hand, then after he'd be thinking, oh my gosh, does she want to hold my hand? Is my hand sweaty? Is this okay? Does she like this? Is she okay with this? Does she want this? And so if we haven't practiced simpler forms and more mild forms of consent, how can we be expected, not how can we expect it, consent is crucial either way, I'm just saying, like, it's going to be a lot harder to be perfect at consent when it really, really counts if we haven't practiced when it's, JV football or Little League, or what are those little, football people called, like, the little kids, Pee-wee football? So it made me think about different ideas, the way they communicate this, like milk before meat. You don't just feed a baby a hamburger. They've got to start with milk, and then someday they'll be able to digest meat. Line upon line, precept upon precept. You don't gobble down a whole book when you're in first grade. You'll learn how to read little books. And I was also thinking about how in dance we practice consensual dipping. We don't dip if we haven't gotten consent. And same thing with close embrace. We are instructed to ask, do you mind if I go into close embrace before doing it, even if we've danced with them before and even if they've said yes before. Same thing with cuddling. If you get up to go to the bathroom and come back, you gotta ask again. And even with dips, you don't just learn like the almost upside down dips that are practically aerials. You first learn, the safety dip where they're supporting their own weight. Like, I'm doing it right now. So they could be holding themselves even if you weren't there. And then you learn like other things where you give them more and more weight, little by little. So it makes perfect sense that if you want people to be good at consent for the big things, you help them start on the smaller things. That's like the playground. That's where you build your strength and figure out how to do things and help it make sense. But consent is crucial, and consent is heavenly, and consent is glorious, and consent can be practiced at the cuddle party.